Hello there. It is a conception that the most powerful people think differently. They are not conformist or they don't go by analogy because if you follow a certain trend, you will reach there only where others have reached. So you have to think different. And by thinking different, you can have innovation, discoveries, and it can be very cost effective and a better tool to handle the problems of your life. So, for solving the problems, you have to break up the problems and then try to see how we can solve the problems. As Einstein said, if I have a problem which needs 60 minutes of thinking, 55 minutes he will think about the problems, and once he understands the problem, then he will get solution within 5 minutes. So that is one of the best method, that is called the first principle of thinking. Here I have the privilege to present to you Elon Musk being interviewed about his evolutionary work, how he reduced the cost of the battery pack. That is the fundamental principle of first thinking, innovation, not analogy, not conformist. Now I hand over to you, Elon Musk.
It's important to reason from first principles rather than by analogy. So the normal way that we conduct our lives is we reason by analogy. We're doing this because it's like something else that was done, or it's like what other people are doing.
Me too type ideas.
Yeah,
Slight
iterations
yeah.
on a theme, and it's kind of mentally easier to reason by analogy rather than from first principles. But by first principles is kind of a physics way of looking at the world, and what that really means is you kind of boil things down to the most fundamental truths, and say, okay, what are we sure is true, or as sure as possible is true, and then reason up from there. That takes a lot more mental energy.
Give me an example of that. Like, what's one thing that you've done that on that you feel has worked for you?
Sure. So somebody could say, in fact, people do, that battery packs are really expensive, and that's just the way they'll always be, because that's the way they've been in the past. You're like, well, no, that's pretty dumb, because if you applied that reasoning to anything new, then you wouldn't be able to ever get to that new thing.
Right.
It's like you can't say, horses, nobody wants a car because horses are great and we're used to them and they can eat grass, there's lots of grass all over the place, and there's no gasoline that people can buy, so people are never going to get cars.
Right.
People did say that. And for batteries, they would say, it's going to cost, historically it's cost $600 per kilowatt hour, and so it's not going to be much better than that in the future. And you say, no, okay, well, what are the batteries made of? So first principles would be to say, okay, what are the material constituents of the batteries? What is the spot market value of the material constituents? So you can say, okay, it's got cobalt, nickel, aluminum, carbon, and some polymers for separation, and a seal can. So break that down on a material basis and say, okay, what if we bought that in the London Metal Exchange, what would each of those things cost? Like, it's like $80 per kilowatt hour. So clearly, you just need to think of clever ways to take those materials and combine them into the shape of a battery cell, and you can have batteries that are much, much cheaper than anyone realizes.
Dear friends, this principle was first discussed by Aristotle, the ancient Greek philosopher and thinker. So in our day-to-day problems also, we can really try to break up the things and try to see what is the vital, what is the starting point, and then we can really build on those foundation and we can make it more cost effective and made better. So thank you very much. That is the first principle of thinking. It can be innovation, discovery, and easily accessible elements in our life. Thank you, viewers.